universe. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 154.
154.
What are we talking about?
This is learning to communicate with your pets.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm excited. I know that this is a big topic
You're
for
good
people.
at this.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
And this is a popular one.
Yep.
Cool. Well, before we do, anything you want to throw in there from last week?
Yes, last week we did spiritual bypassing, and a lot of people responded to that and said that they didn't even know that this was something that they were doing, and they're going to work on it, and so I'm glad that we did that episode.
Cool.
The first thing that I wanted to say before anything else is that we had planned on having my sister Amanda on the show this week.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, things didn't work out the way that we had planned. You know, she was only here for like 3.5 days, and it went so fast.
Trying to cram a lot in.
We were trying to cram a lot in, yeah. And then, you know, it just didn't work out, unfortunately. So, but the visit went very well. It was nice.
Yeah,
we had
it was
a good
really
time.
fun.
Yeah. We went to the beach. We got matching tattoos that Danny drew for us.
Yeah, that part was neat.
Yeah, yeah.
That itself took a good
That
portion
took a
of
whole
the whole day.
That took a whole day, yeah. So, yeah, we just didn't allot enough time, but it was good, and hopefully one day we will be able to have her on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, for sure. So
cool.
yeah. Okay. So then I have a couple of things from listeners. The first one is from Panapat. She put this up in the group. She said, after listening to one of your podcast episodes that talked about repeatedly played music and songs that we usually think it's a coincidence, I've been paying more attention to them and found that a lot of their lyrics have deep meanings, but only if I think about it and when it will resonate with me at some time. Mm-hmm. I enjoy doing that and want to say thank you for bringing that to my attention. Yeah, music is a huge thing that the other side uses. Yeah. It's, for me, like, I need it because it's one of the major ways that I get messages for myself, even just small things like, you know, hello from my mom. Almost every time I'm in the car, I hear Every Breath You Take, which is our number one song. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything except hi. Right. I'm here. I love you. You know, right. But sometimes, like, I'll hear bits and pieces of songs, like just one lyric will just stand out to me, and it's like, right. Whoa, that resonates so much with what I'm feeling at this exact moment. Yeah. And these are just little ways that they get through to us. You know, they use other people too, like when somebody's talking, you know, and you might just hear out of the corner of your ear, I guess, somebody saying something, and then you catch it. Those are messages. They're all messages. Yeah,
because you're just getting like a snippet, even in a song, where you may have heard that song 100 times, but for some reason that particular day, this one line or statement out of it really jumps out at you.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with Panapat that for me, I often think too about how so many artists say that they're not even certain where it came from.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that every song's written that way or even lyrically. It might be very contrived and they definitely had a message they wanted to say, but a lot of artists say that they're just, it's like they're given this idea. They're compelled to write it and jot it down and put it to music, and then you start putting that into context of how this works too, and realizing, well, of course, it's of divine nature.
Right.
It's a way for them to not only communicate with the artist that's creating it, but for that message to kind of live on.
Yes, absolutely.
And to be heard by millions of people in little snippets like we hear them, and be affected throughout eternity.
That's right. Yep, that's right. So if you feel that, if you hear those things, take it. You know, make it your own too. Like a lot of times people say, I hear the song over and over again, and I don't know what it means. But every time I think of it or I hear it, I think of, you know, some particular person. Well, then set it as that. Then say, okay, universe, this song makes me think of this person. Right. So when I hear this song, I know that you have a message for me about this person. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not like, I've said this before, you could hear a song once and it means nothing. But if you are hearing the same song repeating throughout the day, even, that definitely is something to keep an eye out for. When you hear, like, sometimes I'll hear the same song 3 to 4 times in one day.
Yes.
It's pretty crazy. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with that Panapat had posted. I thought
That's
that was
cool.
pretty cool.
Thank you, Panapat.
So thank you for that. Before we get into the other stuff, I do have some very exciting news.
Oh my God.
So I put this up in the discussion group a few weeks ago that we had entered this thing called Podcash. And it was like a sponsorship giveaway from a podcast company called Racket. Excuse me. And today, actually just a little bit ago, I received an email that we are one of the winners. That we won a $250 sponsorship from Racket. Was it Racket? Yeah. To, I don't know yet exactly what we get to spend that on, advertising or whatever. But they said there were over 3,000 people that entered and 330 winners.
Wow.
Yep. So we got 10%.
Well, first of all, thank you for anybody that voted.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And secondly, thank you, Racket, for the opportunity.
We really appreciate it.
Really cool and surprising.
Yeah, it's cool when you have these types of things. It makes you realize that there are people that really enjoy your show so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we love it. Thank you so much. Definitely feeling like I want to cry about it, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
It's an honor.
Yep. Okay, so let's get on to the questions, because we answer 2 questions for listeners every week. So because my sister was supposed to be here, I'm still going to answer the question that she had and do the reading that she had for me. So the question that Amanda had is, do spirits that aren't related to us from birth still help us through life? For instance, did my mother-in-law, who has passed, intervene in some way for her son and I to meet? Were your husband's relatives helping you before you met? Does that make sense? I absolutely believe that. I believe that...
I guess any situation kind of different, but yeah, I don't see why I wouldn't...
Yeah.
Your spirit guides are assigned to you the day you're come into the world.
Right.
And they're not necessarily related to you.
Right.
That's part of their job, but other family members, like your mom, sort of took that role over. But
right. Soul family is soul family.
Right.
No matter how you want to look at it, we've all of your family that you know you're with, related to, whatever. These are people that you have done things with in previous lives as well. You've just played different roles. Mm-hmm. So, for example, and this one might be hard to believe, but your ex-mother-in-law is very helpful with our lives. She helped to orchestrate a lot of different things. I've never met her, but she has been a key part in
Who are
some
we
things.
talking about?
Carla.
Oh, okay. I thought you were addressing Amanda. I was like, ex-mother-in-law. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
No, I'm sorry. Your ex-mother-in-law,
yes.
Carla.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I never met Carla. She is Danny's ex-wife's mother. Mm-hmm. And so that may seem really, really weird to some people. Right. My ex-mother-in-law also continues to play a huge role in my life. These women, these mothers, they really play a big role. So like Jared's mother, who's passed, even though, you knew her, she is still very much a key player in your life just as much as his, because you could have been her daughter in a previous life. She could have been your daughter. You could have been married. You don't know. We all play on our soul families different roles. Yeah. So absolutely, I believe that we are all, guided by people that we didn't even meet in this life.
Yeah. I mean, my ex-mother-in-law is mainly involved pretty much because of Marina.
Yes, absolutely.
She's looking out for her best interest.
Yes.
But because I care... Yeah. She's helping us.
And I'm the channel that can get the messages through to Marina. Right. So she's very much around. And, but Carla and I could have been related. And, we are. Possibly. It could have been soul family. Yeah. She could have been my daughter.
Prior, yeah.
She could have been my son. She could have been my husband.
And you could be doing something later on.
Right. You never know. You never know. So all of these people, even if you had didn't like them in life, like an ex or whatever, they're still in your soul family. And when you get to the other side, you're going to see them there and they're going to be a part of your experience. And it's not going to be like, ooh, look, there's my ex.
Yeah. And probably part of your next plan.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Next life. So.
We get too wrapped up in titles in this life.
And the individuality.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So I hope that answers your question, Amanda.
Thank you. That was a good question.
And yes, it was. It was a great question. And then Amanda has a client, Ed.
Ed.
And Ed is new to our podcast and our group.
Ed Nichols.
Yes. And he had posted in the group a question that I wanted to throw out there. If we see ourselves through the eyes of our soul, the divine beings that we are, how can we see ourselves as unworthy of God's love?
Yeah, that was a wonderful question.
Uh-huh.
I don't see it that way anymore, Ed, so I guess I'm agreeing with you that I view us as fragments of the source, of God. But because the source is so great and vast, it's kind of impossible for it to do what we're doing. So the fragmenting, the spreading out, then allows us to go out, experience all these different things in life and feelings, and then come back after we've passed in between that and the next life and report back.
Yes.
That everything is being recorded.
Right.
So all the way down to, and it's great. I was reading Dolores's Convoluted Universe Book 3, and they explain this, that the earth is recording our experiences and our emotions.
Right.
And then the sun records the earth, and then the galaxy records the sun, and so on and so on.
Right.
Greater and greater until it's all being recorded as experience and knowledge.
Right.
So we are the source. So it's almost like we need to be worthy of self-love first.
Right. Yeah.
Because we are love. Mm-hmm. So once we understand that, then we can give love.
Yes.
And we can receive love.
Yep.
But understanding what we really are, that for me put into a greater perspective of not only what is my mission here, but what am I?
Right. Right. I think the key point, like, to connect all of this is we are all one. Mm-hmm. We are all connected. We all feel each other. It's, if we are all happy, then we're all happy. If we're all sad, then we're all sad. We're even connected to the weather. We're connected to so many different things you don't even know. So love is the key. You have to remember love unconditionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But great question.
Yes, I love that question, Ed, and definitely wanted to throw that out there. Okay, and then before we get into the episode, I'm going to do this reading for Amanda.
All right.
So she had a little dachshund named Augie. Look at Augie. He's so cute.
Big, long, fluffy ears.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because not many people have had long-haired dachshunds. Like, they're rare, but I had one growing up.
Oh, yeah?
And that was the first animal I communicated with. So this is another area where Amanda and I have a similarity. Yeah. So, okay, so let me connect with Augie. Just give me one moment.
Augie bin doggy.
Okay, so first two things that hit. One is that he was very kind of nervous, a nervous dog. He didn't really relax around strangers. The Chihuahuas have this kind of personality a little bit where they think that they're big dogs, but they're not. And that's kind of how Augie was, but had that, like, really nervous energy a lot of the time. The other thing, and this was one of the questions, but this was something I got immediately, is that Augie has reincarnated already.
Oh, wow.
We'll get back into that. But let me get a few other things, and then there was another question that she had. He was very attached to you, very much your baby. He loved Amanda kisses. He loved when you would pet the top of his head. Let's see, what else? Okay, so I do feel like he is the reincarnation of he's in your dog Jerry Lee. This was one of the questions that she had. And he is showing me, like, when I try to picture his soul and where it went, he first shows me a large dog. And then it kind of transforms into this. So, yes, absolutely. I think that is why you have such a strong connection to Jerry Lee, is because it is one and the same. The other question that she had was if her ex had anything to do with Augie being hit by a car that day, if it was his fault. So it wasn't his fault. So the universe works in really weird ways, right? And I have this vision, this feeling of that this was a key point for you. This was where you kind of noticed, well, you were already noticing that things weren't right, but there was a little bit something extra there. Like, what's going on? Did he do this? It was meant to look like he may have been involved because it was supposed to be another sign from the universe that this was not the right person for you, that he wasn't a dog person. And you needed somebody that, even if they weren't a dog person, would totally understand your love for dogs, because Amanda is just like me. Like, seriously, our dogs fell in love with her while she was here.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, Betty doesn't like many people, and she loved Amanda.
Yeah.
So you needed somebody like that. So did I. Somebody that would understand your love for dogs. It's unconditional, and your ex was just not like that. So while I don't feel like he necessarily had anything to do with this, it did happen for a reason. The universe did, use this as a way to go, look, stop. Right. Take a look, see what's going on here. Yeah. And I do feel like they did get your attention with that one a lot. So, and I'm glad that relationship ended, because he definitely would not have been good for you.
That's good.
So let me see what else Augie has to say. So with a reincarnated spirit, things feel a little bit different, which is why they kind of pointed that out immediately to me. I don't know exactly where this information comes from. It feels like it comes more from just a higher source, not necessarily the dog's soul itself, because it's been reincarnated, but there's still a little piece of us that always stays there, Mm-hmm. So when I describe this kind of feeling, to me, it feels like I'm getting the information from one of my guides, not so much from the soul, but that you were a very special connection for Augie, that this was a life soul that will be with you, not just with Jerry Lee, but after Jerry Lee as well. This soul is very, very attached to you. So in more lives and in past lives, you two have been together as well. You'll see certain things, certain characteristics. I want to say there's something in the nose and something in the eyes of each one of these that you'll be able to look at and go, that's a really weird similarity right there. And that will kind of tee it off for you there. So there we have it with Amanda and Augie.
Very nice.
Yay. So I hope that you liked that, Amanda. Sorry you were not here for us to do it live, but
yeah, bummer.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's what I have for you from last week and all that stuff.
All right then. Yep. Episode 154,
Yay.
Learning to Communicate with Your Pets.
Yay, one of my favorite topics.
Yes.
So I know we've talked a little bit in the past about how I got started as an animal communicator, but we have a lot of people that just come in brand new into these episodes. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of history on how I learned that I could communicate with animals. I was very young, and you know what? We don't have a lot of memories before 5. So I don't even know. Maybe I was already connecting to animals earlier on than I remember.
Yeah.
But the first one that I remember, I was about 7, and I was outside playing with a bunch of friends, and I had this dachshund, and I don't remember much about her. Her name was Ripple. I don't remember the kind of connection. I just remember she was pregnant, and I was worried that she was going to get hurt when my friends were playing, and so I looked in her eyes and I asked her to go back to her house and to lay there because I was worried she was going to get hurt. And that's what she did. She turned around and walked back to her doghouse. But, I was 7.
Right.
So I didn't really think anything about it. I'm okay, cool, whatever. And then those experiences kept happening to me. I had a Cocker Spaniel when I was a teenager that was stung by a bee. And the only thing that she was doing was like shaking her head a little bit. And I just knew instantly she's stung by a bee, the stinger's in her mouth. So I went in and I got the stinger out of her mouth. We took her to the ER because we didn't know, is she going to have a reaction or whatever. But she was okay. But I knew exactly where the problem was. Went right to it, And so just continued having those experiences. And then as I got older, I had somebody that told me, a family member that told me what I was doing is actually called animal communication. And that it's something that people do for a living, for a profession, that, it wasn't like very widely out there. It's much more out there now than it was. We're talking like 1999, 2000. Right. So I borrowed some tapes from her and I listened to them. They were like how to communicate with animals. It walked you through like a hypnosis type thing. And that was my first experience with like meditation type. And I remember just, telling me to sit in a room, quiet, and relax and clear my mind and all this stuff, and just to picture the first things that came to my mind. And so the first person that I did this on was somebody that I was working with at the SPCA. I was doing educational work for the SPCA, and I think they did rescue, and they had a dog that they were having issues with. And so the first thing that I remember seeing was this carrier, like a dog crate on the floor in the bedroom, and that the dog was sleeping in there, and didn't like that. And I told that to this lady, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what's going on. And like everything that I said was exactly what was going on. Kind of like the first night that I connected as a medium, Yeah. It just was like, what are you talking about? Like, I totally thought she was just being nice. Right. I'm like, how am I going to get good at this if she's just being nice, right. But everybody that I would do these for told me that I was accurate. I used to have a neighbor that would bring me his dog, his little Pomeranian, all the time. Just bring her over and hand her to me. Tell me what's wrong with her. And there was one day he did that, and she told me that he was saying that she was ugly and she smelled bad. And he was like, oh man, yeah, I do keep telling her that because she needs a bath. I'm like, stop talking to her like that. Like because when she's pretty and she's all clean and everything, he makes a big deal out of it, Right. But then when she's dirty, and it's not her fault.
No, it's his fault.
Exactly. So, and even some people back then, they would be like, oh, well, you're right, but you're just guessing. Right. I mean, people said that to me all the time. And I'm like, maybe I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just
well,
doing.
That first time with Ripple, when, I don't know if you can remember, but like when you said this to her, you said this not verbally, but in your mind.
If I remember correctly, yes, it was in my mind.
Okay. Yes. So you kind of just looked her in the eye and said this.
Yes, exactly. Like I was thinking it with pure intention.
Did you have any sort of thought of, this is kind of crazy, I don't think this is going to work?
Honestly, what I remember thinking is I wanted to impress my friends by my connection to my dog. And if I could tell her to do something and she would do it, that I would be the master.
So did you share with your friends that you had done this?
I was so shocked. I was like, what just happened? Okay, but I think if I remember correctly, I just was like, whoa, cool. Well, maybe they noticed. Maybe
that's
they
what
didn't.
I kind of was getting at, sort of, was that there was this conviction of like, you didn't really have a doubt about it.
I didn't know what it was.
And so many young kids have a lot of gifts when they come into the world and they're real young, but this spooks a lot of parents and things like that. So the minute they're told, like, no, that's not real, or you can't do that.
Yeah.
It shuts it down.
Yeah.
It often stops that ability because they no longer just believe they can. There's doubt.
Yeah. I never told anybody. I didn't until I was an adult. I didn't know that this was even possible. Right. You hear Dr. Dolittle and things like that, and people go, oh, that's just a fiction. Right. It's made up, I never really knew that this was possible. Kids have really creative minds, and I was very much one of those kids. Yeah. And I would sit and talk to my stuffed animals and to my real animals, and dogs were always more special to me than anything. I always wanted to be with the dogs. So the fact that I could communicate with them shouldn't surprise me, but I really had no idea. I just thought I had a creative mind.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't feel like much of anything. Looking back now, I wish that I would have said something, because my mom was really into this kind of stuff. And if I would have said something, you know, it would have started. But anyways, everything happens the way it's supposed to. So.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I did early on when I was starting to do this, learn about this, is I put preconceived notions up for myself, which I also did in the psychic work. Like, oh, I can't possibly do this or that. One of those was communicating with my own animals, that I for a long time said I can't communicate with them myself. It was a block I was putting up myself, because I felt like I don't want to hear things from them, and then maybe I'm not accurate, or you know what I mean? Like, I was worried I was going to hear bad things and then make myself crazy, or like things would happen with my animals and I didn't know about them, and so I just didn't think that I had a connection, that kind of connection.
Right.
That is not true. We can absolutely communicate with our own animals. It to me, honestly, it is a little bit harder than communicating with other people's animals, only because of my own mind, only because they are mine, and I want to make sure that they are as happy as they can possibly be. Right. So if one of them, to me, feels like it doesn't feel well, like let's say I have a vision of one of them throwing up, I might be like, no, that's not going to happen, because that's my baby and I don't want them to get sick.
Right.
And then they
there
throw
it
up.
is.
Yeah. So we just have to like trust that the visions that we have for our own animals are the same as like for other people's, and it's just about letting a guard down to be able to do those. But there's no, you know, don't set preconceived notions of what this is supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to look like, what you can do, what you can't do. That's where we pigeonhole ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I did have a long period of time where I didn't use my abilities, probably from about 2010 to 2017 or 18. I didn't use my abilities, but they were still there. And even though I didn't reach out to animals to try and figure out what was going on, I still knew. I still had the feelings. I still knew what they needed. It made my job as a pet sitter much easier, because I could intuitively tell what these animals needed.
Yeah.
But I still considered this not really using my abilities. Why? I don't know.
Right.
It a lot of times doesn't feel like you're doing anything. And it feels like you're guessing. It feels like it's too, like you... obvious. It's like, well, that's quite obvious.
I was going to say that a second ago. It's like, I think our pets actually communicate more with us than we really realize.
Yes.
But we take it for our own logic and reason.
Yes.
You know, like, oh, I should let them out to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Or how do we know that they're not sending you that? Like, I need to go out.
Right.
For me, the one that I really started to realize was, like, when it comes to the dogs, and they're having their bones or something, and one of these bones that you buy is like full of this whatever.
Yeah, like a jelly
or whatever.
They can lick out.
And we'll be sitting there doing whatever, and the dogs are going at it, and one of them Sabbath really loves this particular type of bone. And I'll just hear kind of out of nowhere, like, poke that.
Yeah,
because he likes you to loosen it up from the center to get it easier for him.
Yeah.
And the more I start thinking about that, I'm like, why do I care? I'm not a dog. I don't lick bones and try to get the stuff out of the center. Where did that thought come from?
Right.
You know? Some people might go, oh, that's just because you love your animal and you're thinking, you know, you're looking out for him. Yeah, but I'm sitting here on my phone doing whatever, not really even thinking about what he's doing, and that thought pops into my head.
This is a great point, because this is something that you've definitely started doing more over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. And so I know that this is not just you caring about your dogs, because you've loved your dogs this whole time.
Right.
This is about they finally are getting through to you more. Like, there's sometimes I'll be sitting there. There was one night I'm sitting there on my phone doing whatever, and Betty's next to me, and she's probably looking at me like, could you put the blanket on me? And you look and you're like, I think Betty wants her blanket. And I was like totally just oblivious. I was in my own world, you know, but she got through to you so that I could put the blanket on.
Yeah.
don't second guess those things when we feel those.
Right.
Just go with them, because especially if they come out of nowhere, there's always a reason.
There's so many, like, those type of messages floating back and forth between not just the animals, but us as people. You know, I think sometimes we take that for, oh, that's just a particular energy that I'm feeling, or it's the mood that person's in, or
Right.
But no, there's messages being sent. It's just how well can we receive that and hear that.
Exactly.
You know? And I, again, would take it kind of like you said, is I'm not doing anything.
Right.
Except the thought just popped into my head.
Right.
Well, why did it pop into my head?
Well, we have to look at the way that animals communicate.
Mm-hmm.
We communicate verbally with a language that is man-made, man-created. I don't even know how many languages, but there's a lot. Animals do not use verbal to communicate. I mean, they have their barks and their meows and those are similar to, like, you know, different behaviors that we have that are signals to others. But their number one form of communication is telepathy. Yeah. So that is what we are hearing when we hear things. It's not for me, I can't talk for anybody else, but for myself, it's not usually a sound or a verbal. It's more of a thought.
Yeah, it's thought.
Yeah, it's more of a knowing that they need something, not hearing some imaginary dog voice going, hey, Mom, can you get this for me? Like a kid. They're sending a telepathic signal, however they decide to send it, whether it's through a picture or just, you know, the telepathic feeling. They're sending that to you. And then that's the easy thing. The easy thing is for you to be able to send it to them. And the hard thing is hearing them back. That takes opening your mind, really opening your mind to be able to hear them back. But really, anybody can communicate with them, you know, to them, to tell them things. That is about learning to relax your mind and learning, like, trying different things. Like when we first started this journey, and I could tell you were trying different ways of seeing, does this work when I try different commands, you know, when I what actually works. And you can feel almost like a click, kind of like a relaxed, you need to be relaxed, you know?
Yeah.
But that is definitely the harder side of things, is receiving the messages back to yourself, I would say.
Yeah, the hearing back is tough. I definitely knew they were hearing me.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, kind of misinterpreting the messages that come in and sort of, you know, not in an egotistical way, but taking them as my own thought.
Right.
And then I started realizing, well, why am I thinking that?
Right, exactly.
Especially at the moment that I'm doing something and I'm not really...
Right.
And that just pops in your head, then I start to realize, oh, okay, this is it.
Right. So what is it that animal communication can do for us? Why is it good for us to learn how to talk to our animals? There are so many things that this can help with, things that I didn't even realize until recently, and I'm getting deeper and deeper into this. But one of the big things is that it can tell us how they're feeling physically. And that is important because they can't just come up to us and say, I don't feel good.
Right.
They show us things like, you know, different behaviors like panting or pacing or licking or whatever their things are, right? But imagine if you could just ask them, what doesn't feel well? For me, when I do this, I will visualize the animal's body and see where I'm drawn to. What areas does it take me to, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'll kind of go from there. A lot of times I will actually feel how the animal is feeling. If they feel nauseous, I might feel nauseous. If they feel hot, I might feel hot. That's a different kind of connection. I don't know that happens, you know, for a lot of people. That's me really trying to get in to figure out what's wrong with an animal. Right. But that can happen. So if you start to feel a certain way when you're communicating with your animals, it can absolutely be them sending you that feeling, that signal of that feeling, you know? It can help with behavioral issues. This is a huge one. I get people a lot of times that are like, I don't know why my animal does this and I need to fix it. But they don't know how to communicate to that animal to fix it. You can't discipline an animal in the wrong way, or it just makes things even more confusing. So this is a great way to be able to explain to them, look, this is what you did. And this is the proper behavior. Like, I will visualize the bad behavior that they did, and I will, no, in my head, I will, no, that's not right. And then I'll show them the correct behavior and tell them that's what you're supposed to do. And these are the ways that we can tell them, this is right, this is wrong. But we can't expect them to understand human language because they don't speak it.
Right.
It can help to integrate new pets. That the animal communication was very helpful with bringing Betty into our situation. She picked up the animal communication instantly. She does great with it. It's better to talk to her with that, and that's very helpful.
I think it was helpful with bringing Zuma in too.
Yes,
because you did communicate with Sequoia about it.
Yes, it was. And I do that with other people too when they're bringing new animals in, because they don't, we think that animals are looking at it one way, like, they're going to feel jealous, they're taking over their space. But the thing is that, like, dogs especially are pack animals, and they usually like to be in larger packs. But they have to set boundaries, and they know how to set boundaries. That's a part of their communication, but we don't realize that that's what they're doing. And so we try to get involved in their form of communication. And that's almost like, if we're having a good conversation, but to somebody it looks like we're arguing, and they come over and they go, stop it, where we're just trying to set boundaries and talk. We can't get involved in their stuff like that. They have their own form of communication. But we can tell them this is what's right and this is what's wrong, and they can tell us this is what I'm trying to do. They can come back and say, I don't like this behavior, and I would appreciate it if the other animal didn't do this, and then we can tell the other animal don't do this. There's so many different ways that we can help there. Traveling. This is something I've been doing a lot for people lately, as well as for us when we've gone away, is that when you're going to be traveling, a lot of times this causes stress for the pet owner just as much as it does for the pet. So this way you can have kind of like a communication while you're gone. This helped me to relax so much when we went to Cambria, because I could check in on them. And like the first night that we were gone, Betty had a really, really hard time. And so I connected to her and I said, what's going on? And she said, I need to go to the bathroom. And so I texted the pet sitter and I said, she needs to go out to go to the bathroom. Has she been out recently? And she said, well, I did take her, but, I'll take her again. Took her outside and she needed to go. She wouldn't relax. She was laying in the living room, which she never does. So because I was able to connect to her and figure out what was wrong, I could tell the pet sitter, take her outside to go to the bathroom. She came in, she slept fine. Yeah. So there's so many different ways that this can help.
The fact that animals, themselves communicate, and kind of getting to that, how they obviously don't have a language and they themselves communicate together telepathically, made me have such a greater understanding of like Mother Nature. Because I would always look at like flocks of birds or schools of fish or herds of buffalo. Right. I go, who the hell's leading this thing? And how do they all know when to turn and when to go up, when to go down? And, like how it's not just like they can move on a drop of a dime or, and they're not obviously connected by wires. So how is this determined? Well, this is so obvious now that because they talk to each other. Right. It's not just because they give off some flick of a tail or a scent. That might be part of it. Yeah. But they are definitely able to speak to each other with intelligent thought. And another proof of that, and another way of learning to communicate with your pets, which I would never want to do, is the pre-recorded buttons that they can train. Those. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of videos with these, recently, where somebody has a panel of like a board that's got 8 buttons for all different things, like go out and play, eat, got to go to the bathroom.
They even have ones that...
But the dogs that repeatedly go and push the button want to go outside and play. And then stand there and look. Yeah. It's almost, in a weird way, like creepy human humanness going on.
Yeah.
And then you go, no, that's not humanist. That's me coming to the reality that this thing is freaking intelligent.
Oh, yeah.
And it's talking to you because you taught it how to push buttons.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. If you haven't seen these videos, look them up. I can't remember what they call the buttons, but it's not hard to find if you just search for them. There are dogs I've seen that use these that have told the owner the other dog needs water, or that they wanted to go outside to chase the ducks because they wanted to eat the duck. Like things like that. They're so highly intelligent.
It's incredible.
We think that they aren't. I don't want to say everybody because it's not everybody, but a lot of people believe animals aren't intelligent because they don't speak.
Yeah.
We're not the most intelligent because we don't speak telepathy.
Right. That's
if you can
true.
speak telepathy, you're using a part of your brain that most people do not use.
Yep.
I wish that I could use it more with people. I can use it with the dead and I can use it with animals, but with people, because people are so blocked out to it and don't believe that it's really something we can do. We don't know how to really do it with other people. And so that's why we don't, but we could. Other civilizations use telepathy as their major form of communication.
Yep.
There's no reason why we couldn't. We just pigeonhole ourselves.
Yeah.
Something real quick that does come to with this, because we have to talk about the yin and yang, is that being able to communicate with animals does have its downsides. It can make you very, very, very sensitive when it comes to animals.
Yeah.
I can't handle anything at all when it comes to animal abuse. And like, what was it? Wild Safari Africa was on TV yesterday, and there was like a lion going after a zebra or something. And I'm like, no, change the channel right now. I can cry at the SPCA commercials. Just hearing that Sarah McLachlan song will make me tear up.
Yeah.
It just makes you really that much more connected to animals, because you realize that they have a soul, that they have feelings and emotions, and just because they can't say what they need to us does not mean that they're stupid and don't need things.
Yeah.
And we have to get past that and treat them more like they're on our level, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
So I asked our listeners how many of them have tried to communicate with their animals before, and 80% said yes. But most said that they don't feel like they're successful. They don't know how to know if they're successful. They are just lost when it comes to this. I asked them what reactions they're looking for. What is it that would make you believe that you're communicating with your animal? And most of them said eye contact. Well, animals aren't taught to use eye contact as a form of communicating. You don't need eye contact for telepathy. So get past that. They might. Sometimes they might. Zuma will stare at me if I'm not getting his signals.
Yeah.
He does that with all of us. You're not getting my telepathy. Hello.
Right.
Listen, you know. So they might use that, but for the most part, they're not going to turn around and look at you when you're talking to them. We're taught that. That's a respect that humans are taught. Look at me when I'm talking to you.
Right.
But animals aren't taught that.
Honestly, I think the best way to try, or, to experiment with this and try this, is to not use words.
Yes.
Okay? And if you're just speaking in your mind, or show them pictures, but I did do this and have done this. If they're kind of really spazzy at the moment, I will use words to just say their name to get their attention, and that really often does get the eye contact going.
Yes.
But once I lock eyes with them, then I say what I want to say without speaking.
Right.
And I'll do it a couple different ways. Sometimes with pictures, sometimes just with words. And see if you get a response.
Right. Yep. Pictures are a great way because you can send them exactly what it is you want them to do. When, we here too, I do it with Zuma a lot, but in our old house, when I was really learning to use my abilities, we would have to, we're leaving, and Zuma had to go in his crate before, and now he needs to come in the house. So I show him, you need to go outside and go pee. And so he'll be standing in the lawn and, maybe goofing off, looking at the birds or whatever, and I will tune into him and show him. I will show him squatting and peeing. And that's my signal to him, you need to pee, this is the time. Anything like that you can send to them, it's food time, it's, we're leaving, this is where we're going. Sometimes when we're out, I'll even check in and be like, I'll show them we're eating, or, then we're going to drive home. You can tell them anything this way, but pictures are definitely one of the best ways to send that. Now, I have never really taught animal communication before, so I can only tell you what works for me. I don't know what works for other animal communicators, but for me, I need to be in a zone. I can't be tense. When we first started this episode today, we have the door closed today because it's spring break and Marina's home from school. And usually we have the door open. And Sabbath gets really hot in here because he's long hair. And I could tell already as we were starting it that he was starting to get anxious. But I was getting into the episode. I wasn't calm. I wasn't, able to really talk to him while I'm trying to do the show at the same time. So when you started talking at one point, I have to relax and tune out from what you're doing for a minute and tune into him. And I said to him, if you are hot and need to leave the room, get up and go stand at the door. What did he do?
Stood at the door.
He stood at the door, and you got up and you let him out when I started talking. But I didn't tell you that.
Yeah.
But I told him, when you are ready, you just stand up at the door and we will let you out. And that's exactly what he did. But I needed to calm my energy first. I needed to tune into him specifically.
Right.
Just like if you're going to talk to somebody, you have to, engage them. I have to connect to him. Just, in order to get the conversation started. I can't just out of nowhere be like, Sabbath, do this. You gotta chill a little bit. So that's the number one thing I tell people is you gotta put yourself into the zone. That's where meditation comes in. Because if you're gonna be high strung and anxious, the message isn't gonna get through. They're not gonna pick it up. When they're barking and driving us crazy, I don't use the animal communication most of the time to shut them up.
I mean, if someone's screaming and yelling at you commands, what's your response gonna be?
Right, exactly. Yeah. You have to calm down and say it to them in a calm way, but you also have to get their attention. So if they're in a barking situation or if they're nervous, they may not be able to hear you either.
Right.
It's the same on the flip side.
Yeah.
When there's fireworks or something and I'm trying to calm Zuma, he hates the fireworks. It's hard for me to calm him that way because he's not listening. He's so focused on what's going on that it's hard to get through.
Yeah.
So that's why with things like that, it's good to do beforehand when they're calm. It's as far as taking them to the vet, it's better to do this beforehand, start it beforehand than when you're on your way to the vet, preparing them.
Yeah.
Even again, if you can't hear them back, if you are calm and you're thinking about them and that's the only thing that you're thinking about and you're trying to show them pictures, they will get it.
They will.
It's really more about what you're feeling and what you're thinking,
Right.
I mean, their energy should be calm too, but it's really more about the person that's sending, because they know how to do this. They know how to communicate, Let's see what else I wrote down here. Oh, you know what? We actually have a few questions.
Cool.
Well, first, Hillary had said, I asked if anybody had tried this, if they had ever heard anything back. And Hillary said, I've never heard anything back, but I know they can hear me. Whenever I take a shower and they are laying around, I'm thinking about how I'm going to give them a bath after. They get up and walk out and don't come back.
Yep.
A few other times where I just ask them to stay close or I'll be back in a minute so they don't follow me from room to room. I've never heard anything back yet, but I know they hear me. Yes, exactly. And that's cool. A really good way to test when your energy is at its best for this is if you're, sitting there and you're telling them to do something and they're not doing it, adjust your energy and see if that works. Test it out more, And let's see, we have a couple
even in your mind when you're getting frustrated and sharing, you can't be envisioning yourself saying it out loud in a scolding, angry kind of energy way.
Yes.
It's more like a toddler.
Exactly.
Just a very loving, hey, I'm going to need you to do this, okay?
That's right. Absolutely. They respond so much better to that. That's what they are about. They're about peace and love. Yeah. They are about unconditional love. They don't want to feel that, aggression and anxiety.
No.
Okay, so a few questions that we have. The first one is from Norma. She said, I've tried this with Penny. Sometimes she wanders and does her business in the neighbor's yard. I visualize the behavior I want, like her coming back home. Can I develop this ability to speak to her, or does she return because she sees me at the door? No, there's a very good possibility that she's returning because you are connecting to her.
Yeah.
And again, that's a great way to test it. You know, is you can even stand inside and test it. You know, you don't have to be out there. Like maybe next time that she does this, stand inside and say it to her visually. You know, picture her coming back from where she is. Sometimes too, if they're not listening, I will envision why I'm telling them this, because just like with kids, they don't always understand and they're like, but I don't want to.
Right.
So sometimes you have to, you know, envision that to them. Like we have a courtyard and Zuma likes to go out there and I have to tell him, you got to stay here. Well, why? Because you could get out there and get hit by a car.
Yeah.
You know, and then, oh, okay.
Or like you said with Penny, the next time that she does this, as she returns, you tell her in your mind, good girl for coming back, but then throw another command right there and see if she responds like, oh, that's a good girl coming back. Could you sit for me?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And see, will she do that? Right there.
Right.
Then you know you're connecting immediately to her.
Yes, that's it. Absolutely. I do like what you said about the praise. Make a big deal out of it. Big deal. That's with anything that you're training an animal to do, whether it's telepathic or not. Make a big stink out of it, and it helps them to understand. They are just like little kids.
Right.
We don't really seem to get that for the most part, but they are. That they just have the brains of, you know, like a 5-6-year-old or up to a teenager, you know, and they get smarter just like we do as we age. The next question actually kind of hits on that a little bit. Is it true, this is from Crystal, is it true that our pets don't really ever understand our spoken language or what we're saying, but understand the inflection in our voice and memorize the words that we use as our cues? So it's everything.
Yeah.
Just like with us, it's everything. Like we have verbal, we have physical cues, we have sign language. You know, you might see somebody across the room and wave hi, and we know what that means. They use it all as well. So they do learn words. You know, they learn a lot of words. Is it memorization? Yeah, just like us.
Yeah. Somebody taught you what dinner was. So all of a sudden, every time you heard the word dinner.
Yep.
You were like, okay.
Yep. The only difference is that they can't speak it back to us.
No.
Like where a child can.
Right.
At some point. They can. You know, a lot of people now, when their kids can't talk yet, they teach them baby sign language.
Yeah. But that's all our language is memorization, connection to whatever, the dialect or the sound of that word, and then maybe a picture or an image if we see it in a book.
Yeah.
And then we learn how to speak it. But what about people that don't know how to speak, right? Let's say they're mute, but they could hear you or they could read lips.
Right. Yep.
They still recognize it and they'll memorize it. We just have a higher comprehension.
Right.
So we retain a lot more data.
Right. African gray parrots.
Yeah, they're incredible.
And Amazons, those are another good one. They're a good representation of just how intelligent animals can be. Gorillas, we can teach them how to associate an object with a word. You know, Coco the gorilla knows sign language, but like parrots, a lot of parrots, you say truck and they'll show you the truck, or you show them a truck and they'll say truck. I see this. I don't know if you've noticed this on TikTok yet, because he's new to the TikTok world.
Oh yeah.
And I see a lot of birds on there. But there's birds where people give them iPads and they play games on the iPads. These creatures are intelligent.
Oh yeah.
They need the stimulation and they love to talk to us. You know, we just need to learn how to talk with them more and be more open to the whole thing, because we are taught, I think, from a young age that animals are not as intelligent as we are. It's not true.
It's a misconception.
Just
I think.
because they don't get in a car and drive it, you know, or something like that, that doesn't make them unintelligent.
No.
You know, they can do things that we can't. A couple more questions. These are both from Crystal. as well. She says, is it best done when awake or sleeping? I've tried both ways. You're dealing with the subconscious, so it does not matter. It doesn't matter. The animal can be asleep, awake, and that trips people out. They're always like, oh, well, I don't want to do a reading too early in the morning because I don't want to wake my dog up. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with that. So, yeah, it's all subconscious work. And then she also asked, some cats can be very dismissive with regular communication, like when you call for them. Do you find in your readings that cats ever ignore you?
Cats are just a different type of animal in general.
They really are. They really are.
They kind of fall under the beige category. I mean, I love cats, but they just have their own...
They have their own way of doing things.
They have their own perception of what's going on here. That's interesting, but they're very much able to communicate with you just like any other animal.
Yes, absolutely. I have had cats that would rather not, but I have had dogs that are kind of like, meh, and that usually has to do with their trust issues. I would say probably the biggest difference that I see between cats and dogs when it comes to the communication is usually dogs are more humble. Yeah. They're more like, oh my gosh, you want to talk to me? Where cats are like, okay, I'll share with you. What do you want to know? That's just the in general feeling that I get between the species. Right. Birds are different too. Snakes are very humble and different. We wouldn't think that, but they are. I love to talk to snakes. Horses too. But cats, they definitely feel different. But they will listen. A lot of times it is about being like, I am talking to you. They'll be like, you're not really, what are you doing? I've never done this before. And it's like, no, this is fine. It's fine. Let's do this. Let's figure it out this way. You have to kind of convince them a little bit more than the dogs. But
yeah, like when we got Sabbath as a puppy, you were already, Sequoia was old and older, and you had already communicated with her throughout her life somewhat. But you didn't do it a lot with Sabbath.
No, not at all.
And then Zuma came along, but you had to communicate with Sequoia because she was the older one, and we were a little bit concerned about, her health and stuff. Yeah. That this puppy was coming, but didn't really talk to Sabbath much about it.
No.
And so, but when Zuma came in, that was kind of like the height of everything. Mm-hmm. So you were very much started Zuma on that right off the get-go.
Yep.
But you would try to talk to Sabbath. And I would remember you say like, nah, he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So, but he has come around.
He's gotten better, much better.
Because I noticed that he's open to me.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, okay, I guess if we all got to do this, I'll do it.
This is how it goes. Yeah.
I can lock eyes with him and talk to him.
Yeah.
And he will stare at me the whole time while I'm talking.
Oh, I know. He's intense. Yeah. Yeah, they all have their own minds, just like people, and he was very much set on the fact that I would prefer not to communicate this way.
Right.
But I think he kind of got jealous because I would, like, Sabbath's the alpha, but I would check in with Zuma. I still will when we're out. I don't check in with Sabbath because, he doesn't. Not interested. Right. So then he gets all mad. They have these feelings. They do. They want, these certain things, and they want to act certain ways. And,
it's funny.
Animals are... They're the best. Yeah. I really could sit here and go on. And one day I really would like to put a course together where I could help people to learn how to do this more with their animals, because it could change the world if people would communicate with their animals more and pay more attention to what their needs are, because I think a lot of times people get animals and they go, this animal's here for me.
Right.
It's here for, I need the support. I need the this. I need the that. What about what they need? Yeah. Because they need the same things. They need the love and compassion. They need the good food. They need to be the good health care, to be taken care of. Just like a child would. They need and deserve all the same respect. Right. And some people don't respect their kids either. So, we can't imagine everybody's going to respect their animals. But we should. We should respect them all. They're all living
creatures. These creatures have been around for as long as we have, if not longer.
Yeah, probably longer,
right?
Yeah.
So we can see just by ancient Egyptian carvings that there was cats and dogs. Cats were very highly, I don't know if they were worshipped, but definitely looked up to, I think, in that culture.
Yeah.
So these animals have been around, whether domesticated or wild animals, for, if not as long as us, longer.
Yeah.
And who are we to just assume that these animals are stupid because they don't speak a verbal language?
Right, exactly.
Yet they've stood the test of time just as long as us.
Yeah.
And their young ones are learning somehow
Yep.
from them,
Yep.
just like we teach ours. I think there was a point in time before when man was here and there wasn't a huge vocabulary.
Right.
We relied on telepathy not only with our own species, but with wild animals.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Okay. Well, there's our hour.
very good.
Yep.
That was fun.
I know. We might have to do a part 2.
Uh-oh.
An hour later. I don't know. We'll see.
We always say part 2 and then we do.
No, we have done some.
That's true.
But I want to see what people's response is. Maybe there's other questions that we need to talk about. So we'll see.
Cool.
Yay.
Well, we will figure it out.
As always.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, before we say goodbye to everybody, would you like to share your page real fast?
Yes, you can find me at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. You can set up an appointment there, or you can email me at beyondthebridge11@gmail.com. For the show, you can reach us at spiritualjoneses@gmail.com, or on social media, you can find us at spiritualjoneses.
Very good.
And you?
Yes, for my art, djonesartcollection.com for the web, at djonesartcollection for Instagram and Facebook. And that's all I got.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we hope everybody got something out of this.
Yep.
That was fun.
It was fun.
Pets are always good.
I'd love to talk
So
about
go
them.
talk to them.
Yep.
Try it out.
Yep. I'm going to go do it more now.
Well, we hope everybody has a great week.
That we do.
And until next week, peace and love.